My old self, you may not say. I release you, be on your way, from here on out I banish thee. These are my words, so mote it be. Hello everybody, this is Steve from Magic Self and Spirit Podcasts. Today we will be working with the Magic of Yule, how to honour the Winter Solstice, the pagan way. The Magic of Yule is a Pagan Sabbat, a celebration of the Winter Solstice. On this shortest day of the year we honour the stillness of death, that quiet moment right before the inspiration of rebirth. In Northern Europe, where these traditions originated, even the sun seems to have died as they experience days of more darkness. This festival invites us to travel deep inside ourselves to the heart of our primal nature. In the stillness we are one with Mother Nature and her seasons. We are one with our ancestors, our bloodlines, and the magic that reaches back to the dusk of time. For out of the primal source of chaos we came to express our true natures in the physical world. There can be no rebirth without the dark night of the soul, a total annihilation of all that you believed in and thought you were. Hezrat, Inayet Khan. The Magic of Yule, Winter Solstice. Yule is the pagan name for the Winter Solstice. It's the shortest day of the year. It's dark by 4 p.m. and often the skies open, the rain pours and cold winds rage across the land. Frost settles on the landscape, killing insects, plants, animals, birds, and even the old and infirm humans. If we understand the seasons as a wheel, then Yule sits across from and opposite Litha. At this festival of death and quiet, all the beautiful colours so prominent at the Summer Solstice have dissolved and vanished. The land and the skies are grey. The colours too have died. Due to the precision of the equinoxes, which causes the earth to wobble on its axis and changes its relationship to the night sky, we now celebrate this time of year on the cusp between the constellations of Sagittarius and Capricorn. Originally Yule was the middle of the winter, but today it's the beginning of the winter and the stillness of the bardo, where we await the rebirth of the sun and ourselves. A celebration of nature's death and rebirth. Light is returning, even though it is the darkest hour. No one can hold back the dawn. Okay guys, we've outlined a magical ritual pertinent to Yule on our blog on the subject, which was just published this morning. April has added the link in the comments for you, so please leave your comment on the blogs so Google algorithms make it available to more people. There is a ritual there that we've designed for you to use over this Yuletide period, and Yuletide is from yesterday until about the beginning of January, that period. The Winter Solstice and Summer Solstice sit balanced and opposite on the wheel of the year. The law of polarity states that everything is dual. Everything has poles, pairs of opposites. This is one of the magical 7 hermetic laws given to us by the ancient Greek god Hermes, or his counterpart, the ancient Egyptian god Thoth. In many ways, the journey of the Sabbats is similar to the phases of the moon. Litha correlates with the full moon on the summer solstice, At the height of the sun god's power, he dies and starts his journey to the underworld. We begin the inward descent toward Yule. Winter Solstice is like the time of the dark moon, as we revel in the destructive power of the silent unmanifest. We await the rebirth of the sun, and the cycle of growth begins anew. Like yin and yang, each pole contains the seed of the other. At the height of the sun god's reign, his demise is suggested at his lowest ebb. His greatness is realized again, that speck of light in the sky on the dark night, and the promise of the return of the light. Death and rebirth is a spiritual theme of renewal that cuts across nearly all traditional mythologies. The death of the old self and the rebirth of the new is the cyclic regeneration, renewal of life, and the realization of your potential. The magic of Yule is about contemplation and self-examination. It's a natural rebirth of self and a physical rebirth of the seasons. The story of Ariana, a goddess of Yuletide. In parts of northern Europe, Ariana is honoured at Yule. She's the Welsh goddess whose crown is the constellation of Corona Borealis, the stars which circle around the apparently still North Star. Ariana is the goddess of reincarnation, and therefore fertility and childbirth. She represents the original definition of the concept virgin, a woman complete in herself, not requiring the protection of a man. The stars in the northern skies house her palace of Care City. They are the rotating spiral, like an island of healing, the labyrinth which you can follow to the centre of yourself, where she trails a line of red thread to lead you. Care City is another name for Anwin, one of the pagan names for the other world, a land of the dead. Ariana is the goddess of the silver wheel, upon which magic is weaved like a tapestry of new life and manifestation. She's the goddess that ushers our new selves into the world. The Law of Correspondence at Yule. The old pagan traditions are unlike modern cultures, where age and death are fearful things to be avoided at all costs. For them, the seasons were personified in divinity and represented the spiritual life of people. The Hermetic Law of Correspondence states, as above, so below. Pagan peoples viewed the seasonal changes and the stages of human life to be reflections of the same cycle. The wheel of the year takes them from birth, through the stages of physical and personal life, the stages of growth, and the sacred stage of life that's death and reincarnation. Each part of life is honoured as sacred. What is the spiritual and magical history of the pagan calendar? The different forms of pagan spirituality and magic celebrate the passing of time as spiritual experience. The tradition of the Sabbat festivals is focused on sun magic, as we trace the cycles of the sun throughout the year. The gods and the goddesses are the forces of nature, deified and realized in different seasons. Human life is seen as a part of this process. The seasons of the year are an expression of humanity, from birth to death and onward to rebirth. Samhain, October the 31st. This is a celebration of the goddess as bringer of death, the spark that stimulates the new cycle of rebirth as new life. For many pagans, Samhain is the death of the old year and the birth of the new. Yule, December the 21st. On the shortest day and the longest night of the year, the sun god is reborn. It's the pagan version of the Tibetan Buddhist bardo, where the soul between death and life awaits rebirth. At Yule we reflect on our lives and what we need to shed to evolve on our spiritual and magical path. Imbolc, February the 1st. This was considered to be the first day within the new year where you didn't need to light a candle in the day, as there was sufficient light. Its literal translation is ewe's milk, as the first of the lambs of the year were born, although often the snow was still on the ground. The promise of spring was realized after a cold winter. White snowdrop flowers poke their heads out into the world. Imbolc is a celebration of the god and the goddess as young children. Ostara, March the 23rd. At the spring equinox, the light and the darkness are equal at 12 hours each. All of the world is alive with new life. Green is seen everywhere. In Avalon, the goddess is honoured as Arta, the mother bear who gave birth to the human race. The god as the green man is alive and thriving. The spirit of nature as divinity has empowered himself. The light is on the ascendance. Beltane, May the 1st. The god and the goddess are young adults. This is the time of the union between the masculine and the feminine, the season of sexuality. As the sap rises in the trees and the animals mate, Beltane is the celebration of sex and sex magic. Litha, June the 21st. The sun is at its height. The land is alive with heat. The light has reached its zenith. This is the expression of life at its most physical and external, as we celebrate divinity as fire. Lugnasad, August the 1st. This is the time of the first corn harvest. The goddess is pregnant. Divinity as parents. Love becomes focused on the love of a parent for their child. Mabon, September the 23rd. The autumn equinox. Light and darkness are again equally balanced, and the darkness is on the ascendancy. This is the main harvest of the grasses, seeds, nuts and vegetables. This is the time we celebrate the abundance of the land and life as we prepare for the winter. Tell me more about the spirituality and magic of Yule. Now there's two kind of approaches to this depending on your spirituality and your spiritual approach. There is an approach to spirituality and religion, which is we follow a divine being or divine beings depending on which religions. And the following of those divine beings is based on completely believing in their reality, is based on surrender to them, is based on your path is about pleasing them. And then there's another path called the left-hand path and other independent spiritualities, which is based on seeing those divinity as forces of nature, as energy of which we are a part. We don't take them necessarily literally, but we work with their energies and we honor them at the times of working with them magically in order to build our spiritual path, in order to evolve magically. And these are the two sides of the approach. There is also a kind of third place with chaos magic, and chaos magic sees everything as illusion and therefore everything as permissible. It's like the law of polarity that we were talking about earlier on. If everything is illusion, its opposite polarity is everything is real. And the thing with chaos magic is you can flow between the two places or stay in one place and focus energy on it. in order to give you the freedom to move through spirituality, to move through religion, to move through magic, to be able to create your own path. Now, the pagan paths, on both sides, if you like, are still an honouring of the seasons. They're still an honouring of nature. They still understand the spiritual experience as physical life. It in and of itself is a spiritual experience. And it moves and it weaves as you wear that mask of pagan priest. Now, I trained as a pagan priest in Avalon in Glastonbury in the UK for 3 years at the beginning of the century. And now I wear it as a mask, but it's a very effective mask. I love that mask. I love the experience. It's poetic. That everything is a reflection of my spirituality. Everything in nature, everything in life, the trees, the plants, the animals, the seasons, the weather, the sun, the moon and the stars, the heavens in general. Everything is an expression of the nature that I am, because there's nothing there that isn't me. Now, we can look at it from the point of view of the right-hand path. All of that is divinity and we are a small part of it that we follow. Or we can look at it from the left-hand path, or the chaos magic path is closer. All of that is me reflected. And the whole journey of magic and spirituality becomes extraordinary when we wear the pagan mask, the pagan magician, the pagan priest, the pagan priestess, the witch. All of that is present. All of that is alive. All of that is bliss. The Magic of Yule and the right-hand path. Magic of pagan religion is about immanence. That is, all of its spirituality is about gods and goddesses as they are represented in the physical world and universe beyond. By consciously moving through life aligned with the seasons as a spiritual metaphor, the adept aligns herself with the deeper mysteries of life, and thus spirituality and magic. Now, why did I use herself there? Well, primarily, most witches and pagan priestesses outnumber the men. I don't know what the figure is, but it was very high in Avalon when I was there. It was extraordinarily high, at least kind of 10 to 1. So, although it's not ultimately true that men can't be witches, 10 to 1 says that most of them are women, so that's why I used herself there. Ultimately, this path is about surrender to the divine as goddess and god, or just goddess, depending on the tradition. The path is still taught by neo-pagan schools like Avalon. Each year the priestess moves deeper into the mysteries of life, sexuality and death. The path and the mysteries are eternal. It is a journey of polarities, of balanced dichotomies. The feminine and the masculine energies, life and death, celibacy and sexuality, happiness and sadness, and all other physical and emotional experiences are sacred and honoured in and of themselves. Initiation often, although not always, takes place in groups. Covens, the druidry, and groups of priestesses and priests. There are exceptions, hedge witches who work magically and spiritually alone, and the Dianic witches, which are usually composed of only women. Initiation is not just the beginning of the journey, but also at every new level. Each new deity one works with demands of the practitioner to meet them develop a connection with them, and learn to understand them. Now, initiation in the Avalon tradition, I can tell you some of it. I'm not going to tell you all of it because obviously it was some of it was secret. And not secret as in keeping it away from other people, secret as in if you were going to walk that path and do that training, you want it to be secret until you do the initiation, because you want the experience anew. You want the experience beautifully weaved. Now, this changed each year. Obviously, the initiations would be different. They would be fresh. They would be new. There's a place in Glastonbury called the Chalice Well Gardens. And the Chalice Well Gardens is as old as the hills itself. It's a beautiful sacred place with little fountains and little nooks and crannies. It's alive with the elementals, the fairies, the elves, the spirits of the air, the spirits of fire. Which one have I missed? Earth, air, fire, and water, the spirits of water, the sylphs, etc. So when it came to initiation in one of the years, the group of priestesses and priests who had been in the tradition for a period of time led the initiation. The gardens at night, nobody else there apart from us. The initiates, as they moved through the garden, would be greeted by a priest or a priestess in a mask and a robe with a hat, and challenged. Why is it you're here? What is your path? What is it you choose? And then blindfolded and led to a different part of the garden, and then working with the initiation of each of the elements, with the water, naked in the cold night, water poured over, the fire, staring into the fire, using it like a scry, the air of the land and the messages of divinity that flow in the air, and grounded into the very earth, into the very place that was originally part of Avalon, the home of the ancient goddess, pre-Christianity. And the experience is extraordinarily powerful. The drama builds the initiation. The masks and the robes and the night time and the surroundings and the ancient land build up to that place where you know for sure whether you're going to commit to the next stage of your path and accept initiation. Now, Avalon probably wouldn't call it initiation. They would call it something like a commitment to the goddess at that point, and that's fine. But in a sense, it's initiation. And they're the kind of experiences initiation brings forward. The Magic of Yule and the left-hand path, or independent path. There's another path that views pagan divinity as deific masks, a term coined by the magician Michael W. Ford. Each goddess and god are forces of nature and a representation of the spiritual aspects of collective consciousness. Whether they're considered real or not isn't important, and is left up to the individual practitioner to determine for themselves. Immanence is only worked with as an initiatory experience, and as a magical way to work with the darker elemental spirits and necromancy. So the immanence of the time is about gaining magical experience, working the magic of the land, of the animal spirits, of the stars, of the sun, of the moon, of the whole physical experience of being human as a magical, sexual, spiritual path. It is the gaining and drawing towards oneself on the left-hand pagan kind of path. The experience of being divinity itself with the intention of self-realization as a divine being in all things. For this path, Yule, is about contemplation and self-examination, a rebirth in and of itself. It is a stripping away of parts of self that don't serve you or impede your spiritual and magical growth. Magic is an empowerment of self, seeing yourself as a divine being on a path to ascendancy and beyond. Through ritual you experience yourself as a creator god or goddess, lord or lady of the universe itself. Using the traditional magic of Yule is the opportunity to use the energy of the Sabbat when it is most powerful in the collective unconscious. So, Yule is about already being dead and waiting for rebirth. Traditionally, it's thousands of years old, and paganism has spread certainly across the Western world as an alternative spirituality that's available. So that energy is already present. It's already present because thousands upon thousands, millions upon millions probably, humans historically have believed in that, have worked with that, or have felt that in whatever way they relate. But those energies are there because of the collective thoughts, the collective experiences, and the collective magic. So now they're available. So when you follow the wheel of the year, it's like you come into Yule and that energy is very strong and available because it's been built that way over thousands of years. So the time to look at the death and rebirth of self is an extraordinarily powerful time right now, because those energies are present, and because you have the opportunity to see death and rebirth with gratitude, because it allows you to shed away those things that don't serve your life anymore. Whether they be physical things, whether they be emotional things, whether they be limited beliefs, whether they be beliefs that you can't do something, or you're not able to do something, or you're trapped, whether they be magical beliefs about other people could do those things but I can't, or magic doesn't exist, or whichever. Numerous crazy beliefs that belong in the collective consciousness, in the herd mind. And they can be shedded and shredded and released and let go of, and out of liberation you can be reborn as a more powerful being, as further along on your spiritual path, as someone that is center to your reality, as someone that is center to the creation of your reality, as opposed to the victim on the end of it, that hopes other people or other things come at exactly the right time to save it, that actually expresses that victimhood as if it were something to be honoured and proud of, because therefore everybody else is responsible for your reality. Yule gives us a chance to flip that on its head. Gives us a chance to step into our own power, to create the reality and the world in our own image, to move through the universe by divine right, to move through life by divine right, because we are a divine being. What are some of the Yule traditions? Well, there's the Yule log. One of the traditions related to Yuletide is the burning of the Yule tree, or the oak, to use its common name. The giant Yule trees usually provided enough wood to keep a fire burning for heat and light throughout the period from the Winter Solstice through to the early days of January. These fires brought together the community on the darkest nights of the year in Northern Europe. Another tradition around the Yule log is to use the oak log as a natural altar. By placing candles and incense on their natural altars, religious celebrations and magical working could be realized. We prefer these magical traditions to their modern replacement, a chocolate cake shaped like a log, although they are tasty sometimes. These practices stem from the archetypal story of a battle between the oak and the holly trees. Each of these trees are seen as kings of the different poles of the year. The oak is the king of the light and wrests control of the physical and spiritual reality from the holly tree, king of the darkness. His victory brings the light back to its ascendancy again at Yule. The magical symbolism is that the oak tree grows to a great height in the physical world while its roots reach down into the soil below. It represents a clear, awakened, and grounded mind, perfect conditions to bring forth new life, both literally and in the senses of spiritual growth, perfect conditions to clarify the reality you choose, perfect conditions to work the magic and do the internal discipline and the vision and the emotion and the language of the reality that you are unfolding in front of you as you focus your attention on who you really are. The Lord of Light and Darkness, the Lady of Nature and Wildness, the Divine Being of all of physicality. Stories of the tribes and ancestors. These stories are told to honor the collective, the continuation of local pagan religion and worship. Even more important, however, these stories map a way of knowing self, where you come from, who you are, and who you're yet to become. This remembrance is a key aspect of the rebirth cycle of Yule. Knowing where you come from is vital when designing how you choose to evolve in the next chapter of your life. Sacred sites and the Henges, a few miles from Stonehenge in southwest England. Upon the same ley lines as the Tor in Glastonbury, the sacred hill we just talked of, and the Stonehenge itself, are the remains of another henge, originally constructed from wood. This henge relates to the sun at the Winter Solstice, the diametric opposite of the sun at Stonehenge at Litha. These two henges can be seen together as symbolizing the journey from life, Summer Solstice, to death, Winter Solstice, and the great rebirth of the never-ending divine cycle. Glastonbury Tor and the sun at Yule. The Tor is the sacred hill of the goddess in Avalon. This was an island near Glastonbury before medieval Christian monks drained the lake around Avalon. It's well documented that the sun appears to rise from the earth and roll up the hill on the morning of the winter solstice, symbolizing the return of life and rebirth. It is actually a physical phenomena that I've witnessed, that you can witness at Yule in the morning. The visual effect of it is like you're standing in the field near the Tor and the sun comes out the earth and it rolls up the hill. It is a phenomenal experience. It's such a powerful experience in nature, but you can sense that connection between nature and your spirituality. Both the traditions and the locations relating to Yuletide honour the journey of life, death, and rebirth, the central themes of celebration related to Yule. The traditions around the Winter Solstice are dark, powerful, and at times exhilarating. This time of the year, more than any other, is the time of honouring your ancestors and the everlasting journey of life and death. Now, as I say, April will have posted the link to the blog that we have just finished here. And on the blog we have composed a ritual working with Ariana and the elemental beings of earth, air, fire and water, and showing you how to raise the magic and build the magic and work with it in the ways to really get into that meditative place of contemplation and self-examination and remove those things that are inhibiting the next stages of your spiritual and magical journey. Thank you for listening. It's been great sharing with you. Have a wonderful Yule. We will do another one of these live podcasts in 2 weeks in January. We'll be moving around, etc., so we won't do one between Christmas and New Year, but it will be available for services if anybody requires any magic working with them, or a reading or whatever, or healing. But in the meantime, blessed Yuletide, and have a great seasonal celebration. Take care, everyone. Much love. Bye.